My favorite thing of visiting my parents is that I always use this mug that is like the size of my face, and it is so, so good and delightful. I finished Violetta last night and I read it completely on the drive, and it was so amazing. And I think that even like I came here for my grandfather's funeral, he passed away at the beginning of the month, and I was there, and then I went home for a week because of school and work and all of that, and then I came back, and I think that it yeah, it was just really amazing to read about someone's life from she was born in 1920 and died in 2020. It's a fictional story, but it really goes over like a century of Chilean history and world and all of these things, and I just fell in love with it. Like I really fell in love with the story and the characters, and they were compassionate, had like lots of aspects of like found family within like blood family, and these themes of like progressives and like how protesting and like almost like the legacy of like marching for your rights throughout the decades, starting in the 1920s, beginning ending in 2020. And it was such a beautiful story with so many like sincere and flawed. And I think I'm going to read Opalnev on my way home. I don't think I'll be reading much otherwise. I am researching about boards of directors right now. It's like just my most special love. For the funeral, I was like, hey brother, I need to go out, drop off my nephew and stuff like that. It's okay. He's like, my door's unlocked. This is gonna be great. I'm like, I can actually change into clothes. It'll be great. Of course, the doors are locked. So now I was like, I'm gonna change in this very busy parking lot. And I have this, my little car seat friend. He's long gone. He's at his dad's, but I changed. I have my wrapping paper and everywhere. It's all over the floor. So I love children so much and these things. So I was thinking about listening to Opalnev, but I'm doing Ed Sheeran. Nancy Mulligan is making me very happy because my grandparents were married for almost 66 years and they were together for 68. So it's really, really cute. So I'm listening to that. That's keeping me company, and I will check in with actual books at a later date. I occasionally make the claim that I have curly hair, and this is in fact what I'm meaning. I have a very sore throat. I'm very worried I'm going to lose my voice completely. I read a chapter of The Souls of Black Folk last night, and it was quite good. He has very dense writing, but it has some problematic thing with like the talented 10 and all of that, but he also has some great commentary. It's interesting to see the development of the ask for civil rights and stuff throughout the years. So I'm halfway home and I'm pretty tired. I have a cold and like a pretty sore throat. I think my throat is doing some interesting things. I tested negative before I drove, but there's freezing rain tomorrow, so I knew that I had to drive tonight, even though I feel kind of like I'm being hit by a sledgehammer when also being like really tired. So I need to get back on the 401, but I also don't want to do that. So I kind of want to like curl into a nice ball and sleep forever. But I'm halfway through Opalnev. I'm not enjoying it as much as I kind of hoped I am, but I'm enjoying aspects of it. I really wish we were kind of getting more into the emotionality and the deep feelings of the things. It does interviews, but the interviews are kind of less in depth than I was kind of hoping, and I don't know, especially their childhood and stuff like that. I really like life stories, and it definitely feels more like an interview than some of the other mediums that have used interviews while also being very in depth. It has a less lyricness to it. I'm still enjoying it. I'm probably going to finish it around the time that I get home, which I'm excited for, and then I will probably make tea and fall asleep. Slash there's Bridgerton season 2, which I definitely had some issues with season 1. Like, I didn't watch it until I think March of last year, like 3 or 4 months after it was, and then I kind of hate watched it, but I also enjoyed aspects of it because I definitely don't like the aspects of lack of consent in it. I think that part of that is very badly done, and it just makes me really angry, especially when sexual assault around men is not actually talked about or spoken about, and there's other issues throughout. And without downplaying any of my problems with it, there is also aspects that I really enjoy. I like historical dramas, and I like the kind of cheeky way that it does things. So even though there's aspects, I literally skipped over some of Pen's story because I love Pen as a character. The way that they dealt with her and Marina at the end of season 1 drove me insane. Like, Marina was probably definitely my favorite character in the whole season, and I'm really sad that I think that she's not coming back. And yeah, I thought that they treated her really rotten. I did the miraculous, guys. I got home. I am safe. I'm in bed. My voice is becoming huskier and huskier as time goes on. I'm probably going to lose it completely. I finished Opalnev. I am really wavering between a 3.5 and a 4. There's so many parts that I really enjoyed, and there's a lot of parts that I felt unsatisfied with, and I think part of it is the preconceptions. As a general rule, I do hate when people compare books to other books, often because they compare them to books I don't like, and I'm like, I don't like that book, but this synopsis sounds great. This one, it was compared a lot to Daisy Jones and the Six, because it is both oral histories that are told through interviews, and the interviewer also has a connection to the like original band in some way, and it's really ingenious, and it looks at kind of like classic rock and the development and stuff like that, and it makes sense why they're compared. But the way that they kind of orient that is very different. It is actually a little bit more similar to Evelyn Hugo in the way that we know who the interviewer is at the beginning and we kind of know their connection and stuff. But the interviewer, and she changes her name throughout, so I'm not sure what is the name, because I think that the name they called her throughout most of it is a name that she no longer uses, but is a name that she used in childhood. More than anyone, this is Opal's story. But after that, it's Saralina's story, and we get a lot of Saralina and like kind of how and what and how she's making this book and the kind of things that surround it, which is really interesting as someone who's going through her debut book and writing at the same time that she's kind of writing and critiquing the publishing industry and journalism and the way that stories get told and stuff like that. However, that wasn't the part that I maybe was most interested in. I was most interested in like being super immersed in people's stories. I'm really a fan of character stories. I'm really a fan of relationship dynamics. And this was a lot more almost realistic in its depictions of that. It had like, you know, a lot of people lied or kept secrets or, you know, obscured truth in a way that, you know, they were cagey, which is a real life thing. But when you're trying to feel immersed in people's characters, you can kind of feel aloofness. And I felt that way. Like, I never felt like I truly knew Opal, and I never felt like I truly knew Nev, and I never felt like I truly knew the side characters as well, because so many of the side characters, like, we don't get huge histories of them. You know, I just read Violetta by Isabel Allende, and I love that too. Like, I really love these really intimate looks into people's lives, and though we look at their childhoods and stuff like that, they are very much more glossed over, and that's okay, but I missed part of it because of the preconceptions that I had, and I think that that's fair to know. Throughout, I was really invested in Opal, but I never felt like I got to see enough of her, even during the time, like, where, you know, they were on tour or parts in the recording sessions. Like, I never felt like I was living there. I felt like I was being described that, which it was supposed to be a journalistic account, so it makes sense why it felt that way. But I did enjoy this book. I do recommend it, but I think that knowing the way that the story is told and the context of the story will actually enrich it. I was rewatching Never Have I Ever, which is just a brilliant show, and I love it so much. It's hilarious and wonderful and just well acted, and deals with like depression and grief and all of those things. And you know, after losing my grandfather, being able to rewatch this series actually brought a lot of feelings. Now the next day I have slept. I watched the first episode of Bridgerton season 2, which was interesting. I was bored for a lot of it, to be honest. I definitely got a lot more interested near the end. You definitely feel the absence of Simon very, very much. I think that when I talked about Marina being one of my favorite characters, but Simon was also one of my favorite characters, and Eloise was probably my third favorite. Eloise really annoyed me through most of this episode, which was really frustrating as I really liked her. I felt like her like full-blown kind of, I don't know, there's one thing to be like, hey, I don't really want to like get dressed up, but like she knows the queen. She knows she's not gonna get out of it, so her being like really fussy about like putting everything on is just like, you're just making this harder on yourself. Although I'm no longer a teenager and can like see that there's definitely things that I had to do as a teenager which I was like, no, not doing. So like I understood it, but I was like, the like insistent of every scene she was in was kind of tiring. But then her conversation with Penn at the end was a lot more kind and compassionate. Although I did find aspects of Whistledown a little bit more annoying. Most of the issues I had for the episode were covered by the end of the episode. I thought that Anthony without sideburns, so much better dude. But his interesting developments in the season, I really like Kate and I really like Edwina so far. Edwina is more like floaty, and I want a little bit less floaty, or not, she can still be floaty, but I want some more things. But we saw a little bit of that closer to the end, but I really wish more of them had been highlighted this season, because like they are the main characters of the season, and we already know the Bridgertons, we already know the Feathertons. I read Medea last night, and that is a book that I think Kate would really like. I think just based on some things, she would relate to it, so that is my recommendation. I have not finished The Souls of Black Folk yet, but I am enjoying reading it. It has some issues that are not discussed in a way that we would discuss now. It has some problematic conceptions around the idea that like only a certain amount of Black people are actually talented enough to break through, and that like we should lift those up rather than like trying to look at everyone equally. And I read Violetta, which was really good and is a new favorite book. I read Opalnev, which was kind of in the middle. I really enjoyed some aspects, but did not enjoy other aspects. Especially, I think, upon like thinking about it overnight, a lot of books that I really, really love, it's when you meet a character and you kind of go into their backstory, and then almost at the end you like sum them up. And I love being able to look at people's stories from life to death. And we didn't see that with Opal, and we didn't see that with any of the other characters. Like, so many characters like Miss Ernestine, her sister Pearl, so many of these other characters, we actually never know what happens to them. We kind of get like sly hints into it. And I just wanted more of their stories. I wanted the ensemble cast to feel like an ensemble cast. Instead, many of their stories just drop off and we never actually figure out what they're even doing in 2015. And that really frustrated me. I wanted to know more. I wanted to see more of their characters, and so many other people are able to do that in succinct lines, like not maybe dedicating like paragraphs and paragraphs, but I like when we are given snapshots. But I also think I'm a little bit harsh on Dottie Walton, more than I need to be. This is her debut book. Many of the other authors I was talking about, like Elizabeth Allende, who, you know, she's been writing for 40 years. Taylor Jenkins Reid's, I think, you know, it's her 6th, 7th, and 8th novel that I read. I am really, really excited to read more Dottie Walton in the future and give her more chance, because I can see the flickers of something great, and I really did enjoy the story, especially the social commentary and stuff. Just the character work wasn't completely there for me. So hopefully next time we will chat about more books and more writing and TV shows or whatever else, and I will talk to you then. Bye.